In the bustling city of Alexandria, where the Mediterranean met the deserts of Egypt, a woman once stood as a beacon of knowledge. She lectured on mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, drawing crowds of students, pagans, Christians, and Jews alike. Her name was Hypatia, one of the first great female philosophers and scientists. But her brilliance made her a target. In a world torn between faith and reason, her life ended not in quiet old age, but in blood and fury. Her story is both inspiring and haunting, a reminder of the fragile line between enlightenment and ignorance. The city of Alexandria. Alexandria was no ordinary city. Founded by Alexander the Great, it became a hub of learning, trade, and culture. It housed the great library of Alexandria, the museum, and countless scholars who pushed the boundaries of knowledge. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, however, the city was also a cauldron of religious tension, where pagan traditions collided with the rising power of Christianity. It was here, in this charged atmosphere, that Hypatia's life unfolded. Early life and education. Hypatia was born around 355 CE, the daughter of Theon, a mathematician and scholar at the Library of Alexandria. Rather than confine her to domestic life, Theon encouraged her education. Hypatia studied mathematics, astronomy, and Platonic philosophy. She exceeded her father's knowledge, eventually surpassing many of her male contemporaries. From a young age, she embodied a radical truth that wisdom had no gender. A woman among philosophers. In a world where women were expected to remain silent in public life, Hypatia stood at the center of Alexandria's intellectual community. She dressed in the robes of a philosopher, spoke in the public lecture halls, and taught openly. Crowds came to hear her speak on Neoplatonism, the philosophical system that sought to connect the human soul with the divine order of the universe. Her presence alone challenged social norms. She was proof that intellect, not gender, defined a thinker. Teacher and mentor. Hypatia was not only a scholar, but also a mentor to many of Alexandria's brightest minds. Among her students were pagans and Christians, including Synesius of Cyrene, who later became a Christian bishop but continued to honor her as his teacher. Her school became a place where religious and cultural differences could be bridged through philosophy and reason. In a divided world, Hypatia's classroom was a sanctuary of ideas. Contributions to science. Hypatia's works in mathematics and astronomy are legendary, though many were lost after her death. She is believed to have improved designs for the astrolabe, a device used to measure the positions of stars and planets. She also worked on the hydrometer, used to measure the density of fluids. Some accounts credit her with writing commentaries on Diophantus's Arithmetica and Ptolemy's Almagest, clarifying complex works for her students. While none of her original writings survive, her legacy lived on through the scholars she influenced. The philosopher's authority. Hypatia's influence extended beyond the classroom. Her wisdom and impartiality earned her respect across Alexandria. Even political leaders sought her advice. Prefect Orestes, the Roman governor of Egypt, turned to her for counsel, but her prominence also made her vulnerable. In an age where religion was becoming political power, a pagan woman who symbolized philosophy and science was seen by some as a threat. Rising religious tensions. By the early 5th century, Christianity had grown from a persecuted faith to the dominant religion of the Roman Empire. In Alexandria, the powerful bishop Cyril sought to expand the church's authority. Tensions between Christians, Jews, and pagans boiled over into riots and violence. Hypatia, respected as a symbol of classical learning, stood in the middle of this storm, admired by many, but resented by those who saw her as an obstacle to religious control. The conflict with Cyril. Hypatia's friendship with Orestes, the Roman governor, drew suspicion. Orestes clashed with Bishop Cyril over control of Alexandria, and Hypatia became entangled in the conflict. Rumors spread that she was preventing reconciliation between the two men, that her pagan philosophy was corrupting politics. In truth, she sought peace through reason, but in an age of zealotry, reason was dangerous. The murder of Hypatia. In March 415 CE, tragedy struck. A mob of Christian zealots, incited by rumors and rage, attacked Hypatia in the streets. They dragged her to a church, stripped her, and killed her brutally, using pottery shards to tear her flesh. Her body was burned, her name slandered. The murder shocked the empire, marking not only the death of a philosopher, but the symbolic triumph of fanaticism over knowledge. Shockwaves through the empire. Hypatia's murder was not just a personal tragedy, it was a cultural wound. For many, it symbolized the decline of the classical world, the silencing of philosophy, and the growing dominance of dogma over reason. Later writers, both pagan and Christian, condemned the act. Hypatia became a martyr, not for a religion, but for the pursuit of truth. The symbol of Hypatia. Over the centuries, Hypatia was remembered in different ways. To some, she was a pagan heroine, the last defender of classical wisdom. To others, she was a warning of the dangers of uncontrolled zealotry. In the Enlightenment, she was celebrated as a martyr for science and reason, inspiring writers and thinkers who saw in her death the eternal struggle between knowledge and ignorance. Women in philosophy. Hypatia's story also raises questions about gender. She broke through barriers few women dared to approach in her time. Her life showed that women could not only participate in intellectual life, but could lead it. For later generations, she became a symbol of women's ability to challenge boundaries and contribute to the highest levels of human thought. Lessons for today. Hypatia's life and death carry timeless lessons. They warn us of what happens when intolerance silences inquiry, when political power crushes intellectual freedom. They remind us that knowledge must be defended, not with violence, but with courage and persistence. And they inspire us to see philosophy not as a relic of the past, but as a living flame that still challenges ignorance today. Conclusion. The eternal flame of reason. Hypatia of Alexandria was more than a philosopher. She was a bridge between worlds, between ancient wisdom and emerging faith, between science and philosophy, between reason and superstition. Her death was brutal, but her legacy endures. She teaches us that while books can be burned and voices silenced, the pursuit of truth cannot be killed. Like the stars she charted, her light still shines across the centuries, guiding us toward courage, knowledge, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit.